Hey everyone, this is Chris Tiroff, Traverse Creek Incorporated, located at 2118 8th Avenue, Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, 15010. Telephone number 724-846-1914. And our website is www.sawsalvage.co. What I want to talk about today is this tool that we have that helps press out and press in the press fit wrist pin and wrist pin bearing setups found on like 70s era and potentially earlier American-made saws. So Poulan 3400, 3700, 3800, 4000, all the Homelites of that era. So you're talking, I think the 350, 360, 450, 550, 650, 750, probably some others. And then a lot of the 10 series Max. And I think some of the bigger Max too, like the SP81s, things of that nature. I made a video about this maybe a couple years ago when we came out with the tool, but I'm going to make a little bit better quality video here so everybody can get an idea of what's going on with it. It's not too much rocket science, so we'll just get right into it. I'm going to change the camera angle and we'll get real close in here so you can see what I'm doing. So I think what the first process we're going to do is we're going to actually take out, I think this is like an old SP81 or something like that. So the bearings are actually, there's one bearing in each side of the piston. They're press fit into the piston, but then the wrist pin just floats on those roller needle, like the cage roller needle bearings, and the wrist pin is actually pressed into the rod here, which is a pretty decent design. That's what they were doing in that time frame. But now, pretty much you've got the floating wrist pin inside the connecting rod itself, and then it's just clips to hold it in. So the new ones are a lot easier to remove because you just like pop the clip out, the wrist pin slides out, and the piston comes off the rod. But unfortunately with some of these, it's press fit in there. It can be pretty challenging if you don't have a tool for it. Mac, Poulan, Homelite, I believe they all had their own tools, different ways of doing it. Every time I ever had to work on one of these saws, which wasn't very frequently when I was playing around. I mean, I don't do a whole lot of repair work on them now, that's for certain. But back when I was just playing around doing hobby stuff, it was, always challenging for me to, figure out exactly how I was going to get that out of there without some type of tool. So I was just looking for a way to figure it out and get something done and get a tool with off-the-shelf parts that you didn't have to involve a machinist or somebody, and then you got a tool that costs $100, to do a simple task. And a lot of this stuff is hard to find anymore, obsolete. So you don't want to damage it whenever you're taking it apart. So I was looking for a simple way to do it, and this tool works pretty good. We sold a bunch of them to customers. A lot of people like them. They work good, and they're kind of multifaceted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the tool set up. I'm going to show you a little bit about the tool, and then we'll use it. Most of the time, whenever you use it, you don't have to use heat at all. But if you've got one that's really bound up in here and it's hard to get it to pop loose, it certainly wouldn't help you. I mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt you to use a little bit of heat on the rod here, just to try and break that bond. I mean, this rig here is probably 40 years old, 45 years old. Who knows how bound up it is in there. But we're going to give it a test run here. Hopefully it all goes smooth. I don't make a fool out of myself, and we'll go from there. Hope you guys notice I got a fancy new table here. We were able to find some room in the budget to spend, $100 and get a nice stainless steel table. So, here's what we'll do. I'll show you about the tool. So the tool is just kind of a motorcycle wrist pin puller is what it is. But the problem is a lot of the motorcycles have, the wrist pins are too big. They come with, I think that's an M8 is what they come with. So you can't use them on these because it's just simply the end is too big. It won't just pull the pin, it'll have to pull the whole bearing. And then the tool also comes apart So you could use this like the flat side for different applications, or this concave side for other applications to fit around the piston. But if you see like how it fits on this McCulloch piston, it'll actually probably mar some of the edges of the piston, which is bad news. So what we can do with it is, because some of the pistons actually have like a nice flat spot in them where you can turn this around and it'll fit there, but this isn't like that. So what we'll have to do is just take this end and put it on there like that, and then that fits nice. It's not going to damage anything. It's not going to mar any of the edges of the piston, so you should be good to go with that. Then what we do is this is reverse threaded, and then you got the blind hole that your wrist pin or whatever you're pulling or pulling into there can kind of go into. It gives it a receptacle for it to go into. So like I said, we were having a little bit of trouble with because the M8's too big. So what we did is we made it so you could step it down to an M4 using a Easy Lock stainless steel thread insert. So basically all you got to do is put the thread insert inside there. I usually just run them in by hand. Which is usually enough. Yeah. All right, so we are good to go there. So then what we're going to do is we're going to get this set up, pull that pin. So if you look, the M4 fits pretty good on that diameter of the pin. So it should pull that out, no problem. So what we're going to do is get this tool all set up. Just kind of keep threading it in there. All right, now it's bottomed out. So what we'll do now is, things a little tight here. So we'll just keep backing this out till we're tight here. And you just want to make sure when you do this, you're lined up. So you're pulling straight. Because if you don't have it if you don't have it lined up, what'll happen is you'll have it cocked, and then it's not going to work proper. So see how I'm centered on the pin, and then I'm also centered on the bearing mount boss on the casting itself, or pretty close. You'll know once you start cranking on it, and then all you got to do is just crank on it and keep backing that off. Look like a monkey screwing a football here. There it goes. Now the pin just popped. So if you look in there, the pin is already popped loose. So this one's probably going to be a pretty easy one. It'll probably walk right out. See if I can just do this one by hand here without having to use both wrenches. And this is going to all be by feel. You're going to have to decide what is best as you're doing it. Thing is, you don't want to get into applying too much pressure on it. If it feels like it's too much, you might want to apply a little bit of heat to it. Let's see if we can get this on here in a way that's a little bit easy to show on camera. I think the other thing you could do is probably just throw it into a vise. Might be a little easier. Okay, so actually I ran into one of these scenarios where we needed heat, put too much tension on it, busted the M4, which is typical if you don't use heat in a situation. It's better that the fastener fails as opposed to anything else inside there. I'll give you a look into what it looks like when the fastener fails, and then kind of what you'll have to do. And just for the sake of time today, I just grabbed another one of these tools and I got it set up. But just to give you an idea of what it looks like, and then what you would have to do at your side. Hold on, getting a call. And that's what it looks like. Let's see if I get it to focus. There you go. So that's what it looks like whenever it fails. The fastener's busted off inside there. You could likely just drill it out or, fool around here. Hold on. All right, we're back. So I ran the heat gun on that for a little bit. We're going to see if that helps us get it busted loose. I don't keep a torch up at the shop, so I normally would have used that, but just run a heat gun on it for a little while, get it heated up. Let's see if we can get it to come loose now. Oh, yep. Seems like it's walking out there now. Oh, yeah, you can hear it. Yep. Maybe you can see it at that angle. A little bit each time. Oh. And a lot of times what happens is it'll damage the bearings, because the bearings are just kind of a one-time use deal. So we just shot a bunch of little needles all over the place, which you're going to want to replace while you're in there anyways. You can see she's really coming now. So in this scenario, just like I busted that one, we just need to use a little bit of heat to coax it out of there. I think with the, I'm not 100% positive on these, but I believe on like the SP81 series, that uses a B76. You gotta knock the bearings out of there. Uses a B76 bearing, which is a bigger bearing. I think it has a bigger diameter pin than like some of the 10 series saws and then like the smaller Homelites. So then you got more surface, contact area in the connecting rod itself. So they're a little bit harder to get out. But yep, that's it. So everything's undamaged here. Obviously the bearings are damaged, but you have to expect that. That's just what you're going to get with those. And then if you want to get the wrist pin, to reuse the wrist pin, oops, sucker's a little hot. Let me grab a tool here and then I'll show you how to get that. This thing's still hot. I already took my gloves off. Hold on just a second. All right, and then here you go. Just holding it with the glove, and then I got the wrench on the other hand. And yep, she come right out. And you can retrieve your wrist pin. Oh, it's all hot. And a thread insert came out with it, but you could just put it back in. All right, now we're going to move on to the next process here. Let me kind of get the table moved around and get everything set up. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to press some bearings into this McCulloch 1010 piston. This is an aftermarket one. I'll show you how we'll do it. I don't have anything set up for this SP81. This sucker's still a little bit hot. I don't have anything set up for these, and I don't have the new bearings in stock to use as an example, because these use like a B66 Torrington cage needle roller bearing. These use a B66, which we keep in stock. So I'm going to kind of give you a brief I'm going to show you real briefly how to press these in here using this tool. So kind of just like everything else, every scenario is going to be a little bit different. So this one, you'll probably want to use this concave sleeve on the end here. You got to be careful with these because of the way the skirt is here. You don't want to apply too much pressure to the skirt. So whenever you're pulling that pin out with the 1010, you kind of don't want to use it like this. And unfortunately, it doesn't fit like that. So you may have to figure out some way of shimming that so you're applying the pressure to the bearing boss as opposed to the skirt. But pressing these bearings in doesn't really require a lot of force, so you can usually get away with it without cracking the piston. But like I said, every scenario is different. So you take this and you take this tapered side of the bearing, put it in there. Now we're going to use the M8. Kind of get everything started so it's looking straight and lined up. Take that in there. You can run this M8 in. Just want to make sure you got, let's see here. Just want to make sure that piston is laying in there nice. If you look, it's already pulling the bearing in by hand. So I'm not just doing this by hand. And it's got so much now that I'm going to have to use the wrench here. And then you just keep cranking it in. Let's see if I get it to focus. And you just want to take that bearing in until it's flush. Taking very little effort here on my behalf. And now the bearing is in. All you got to do is just take the tension off. Should come out by hand. There you go. Now you got a bearing in there. Relatively painless. And whenever you're doing this, you'll just want to index it so the crankshaft has enough room. The connecting rod has enough room in there. You just want to index it whenever you take them out and put them back in. You want to make sure they're the same. Now, here is where you could run into a potential issue, and it is pulling old bearings out. So in this scenario, if we want to pull this bearing out, you could just go through here with the M8. No problem, because there's no bearing in that side. There's not enough space in between these bosses here in order to pull a bearing through if you've got two bearings in. So what you could do is take this M4. Hold on, I'm going to have to mess around a little bit to get set up. So hold on just a moment. All right, so what you got to do here is I've got the thread insert. I'm going to put that back into the tool itself. Okay, I've got it firmly seated into the tool. And what I have here is just, it's nothing special. It's just a nylon lock nut that I drilled out. I mean, I'm sure that you've got some different things in your shop or options that you could use. So what you'll kind of have to do is, in this situation, because I don't have the bearing in this side, I could just drop it through. but you might have to finagle it a little bit just to get it to fit, you know. Or you could get a washer just for the sake of expediency. I don't have anything here in the shop that I could use, or that I could use other than this. It's just like a quick thing I grabbed off my bench. But you see, I'll be able to pull in this direction out instead of trying to pull it in between the bosses. And I suppose if you wanted to, I mean, you could pull one bearing into the other bearing if you got it lined up and do them, you know, double, because they're not really that hard to get out. But just for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to show you this way. And then the same thing, you just get it started. And here, just want to make sure that this portion, the inside portion, is flush with this adapter, so you're not pressing on that. And we're just going to keep backing this out until we're able to create some tension on the bearing. Oh, somebody riding by. And you just want to make sure everything's straight. Here we're all relatively straight. And then again, we'll just keep cranking this out, and it should just keep pulling that bearing right out into the sleeve there. Oh. Very little effort required on my behalf, and see how it's just walking that bearing right out. And that's it. And the bearing's out of the piston. The piston's unscathed. And then you could use the same process to put the wrist pin back into the rod itself. And like I said, that's just a real quick overview of the functions of this tool. You can use it for a number of different things, you know, between pulling bearings, pressing bearings in. It's a pretty versatile thing, and it's relatively painless in most scenarios, and you can kind of adapt it to different applications. I'm sure there's some guys out there that could do it with a lot more finesse than me, and have some different ideas on things. Like I said, this is just kind of a real quick glimpse at it, just to give you an idea of the processes of it. And like I said, my name is Chris. I'm from Traverse Creek Incorporated, located at 2118 8th Avenue in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. Our telephone number is 724-846-1914. Our website's www.sawsalvage.co. We're Husqvarna and Echo dealers. And yep, we'd be happy to help you with anything you might need. Thanks so much.